more difficult situations financially. And so I would say that, altering the way in which we treat our economy in terms of who has economy would improve us quite a bit. The home ownership numbers from 2005 to 2015 due to the doubling of student debt, basically the cost of tuition doubled, whereas other consumer products did not, would infuse our communities with more home buyers, more people with liquidity to go out and do things that they might enjoy. And as far as the deficit goes, we need to start paying more attention to the fact that it's hurting people in major ways in the lower income levels than those that are in the elite 0.1% of the population. And so I think by correcting the built-in inequality, we could improve the deficit by bringing more people into the economy, because right now people are locked out. They don't have the financial ability to be involved.
Okay, thank you. And did we ever catch back up with Benny J?
I don't know.
I think we've lost him. Okay. Well,
Raj, he's right there, bro. He's right there.
Same question.
He's right there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, debt is kind of, we all have debt. Mortgages are very typical, student loans and things like that. But I guess for me, it's a question of how we're accumulating that debt and why on the national level. For me, I'm a supporter of universal basic income. I would much rather see money being injected at the bottom of the economic food chain than the top. For example, during this coronavirus pandemic, just last week we pumped in half a $1 trillion into the economy to businesses, and particularly the oil and gas companies, and that $500 billion would have paid UBI on the model of Andrew Yang $1,000 a month for every single American adult, would have paid for UBI for 4 months. And so the way we're seeing things happening now is people are having to make a decision about whether they go to work and get infected or infect their workmates, and then bring that infection home to their families, or miss a paycheck and possibly lose their home, their car, etc. So I definitely am supportive of UBI, because if we're going to have debt, and we are going to have debt, that it's the money that we spend on the national level goes into the workers' pockets and not the pockets of corporations.
Okay.
Why did he leave?
Jimmy, same question.
Thank you. It's very important to me. If we're going to be in debt, we need to be responsible, and we also need to hold those leaders accountable. I agree with that Joe on student loan debt. As someone who has $180,000 in student loan debt, very much in favor of forgiving that. And then I also agree with Mike on UBI, helping those that, if we're going to spend it, let's spend it on us. And second, we don't need to continue bailouts for major corporations. We need to bail out our American citizens, because corporations are just going to take that money, give it to their CEOs, and it's still going to leave every American citizen still struggling to pay those bills. So, again, it's just being accountable and balancing a budget. We can do it. We've done it in the past. We can do it again.
Okay, we'll go over to Eric.
All right. So in regards to the debt and deficit, first I'd like to point out the fact that Democrats' recent history have done a lot better job than Republicans. And I'm not that worried about it if you subscribe to modern monetary theory, which I think is promising. It says you don't really have to worry about the debt a whole lot, because money out means money in the hands of someone, right, in the economy. But, and then also it just comes down to the deficit. Now it's skyrocketed to $1 trillion right now. But, Clinton has erased the deficit. Obama cut in half. We can do that. We can pay for our stuff, and as long as you eliminate the deficit, so that we're not losing money, we're gaining money. That's not an issue, right? So, and then I am going to parrot a lot of the things that Jimmy, Maggie, and Mike have said in terms of where money needs to go. Principle, economic principle, velocity of money, which explains how money moves throughout an economy. Kind of judges what a healthy economy is. Says that generally speaking, if you put money in the hands of the rich, they're going to spend 5-10% of that money, hold on to the rest of it. Whereas if you put money in the hands of workers, they're going to spend 100 to 110% of that, right? Which stimulates the economy, gets the economy going. So, lots of the policies that I'm for is geared around that, putting money into the hands of the people. And the major debt that I worry about is the debt of the American people. Student loan debt over 1.6 trillion, credit card debt over $1 trillion. My time's about to run out, but that's how I feel about it.
Okay, thank you very much. And just to confirm, I did not see that Benny J has joined back in, so we're going to go on to the next question. And this next question will be a 1-minute question. What ways would you work across the aisle to get legislation to be beneficial for Kentucky done? What ways will you be working to work across the aisles for legislation to be passed? For legislation to be beneficial in Kentucky to be done? And we're going to start this one with Mike.
All right, I'm muted. All right, so I have a plan, and I kind of look at this a little differently than other people do. Too often, to get money, to get projects done, we are in competition with other states. And I want to use Appalachia as an example. We've got 8 coal-producing Appalachian states, neighbors of us here in Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee, etc., West Virginia. And here's the way I look at rebuilding Appalachia, is that if you work with the senators and the governors of those 8 adjoining states, you've created a train that you are not going to stop. When you demand that we repair the damage, economic and the ecological damage that was done to Appalachia for the last 200 years of the extractive economy we've had. If you get 8 states working together on that across the aisle, that's something that can't be stopped.
Okay.
States working together on that across the aisle.
Jimmy, same question.
Okay. I think it's very important that we meet them where they are. Find the common ground that we can build on. I'm a little bit different, I guess, than some of the other candidates in that when elected and I swear in and I walk onto that Senate floor, my party is being left at the door. I'm not going to vote for something because it's party. I'm not going to vote against it because it's party. I'm going to vote for something that I know is going to help my community, help my state. I'm going to vote against things that I know isn't going to be beneficial to the ones that I love. So, again, it's just meeting them where they're at and building that common ground. And I think we can do that if we put our heads together. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Eric.
So I will work with Republicans on anything that I currently agree with. I'm not going to compromise my values for, just for the sake of bipartisanship. I'm not going to take Rand Paul, for example. He has a, somewhat anti-war record. I can work with him on that. But then when he wants to give tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans, I will fight him on that. And that just kind of goes across the board. And honestly, to parrot Jimmy Osbrooks, I don't care if someone has a D next to their name or an R next to the name. Same thing, and how the current Democratic Party is in Congress, I'll probably be fighting them as much as Republicans on a lot of issues. So, basically have a conflict full of corporatists on both sides. So, if there's common ground, I'll work with it. That seems amazing.
Do you want me to go ahead?
Yes, go ahead. I think we lost Tanya that time.
Oh no! Should we give her a moment? I don't.
I'll tell you what. We'll go ahead and give her a moment, ladies and gentlemen. We'll give her a moment to try to get back on. I'm sure she's frantic right now. So we'll give her a moment to get back on. If not, there she goes. She's coming back now.
There she is.
Give her a few more seconds. I'm sure she'll be right on with us. You got time to get some thoughts together.
Hey, did I get back on?
Welcome back, Benny. Welcome back.
Oh man, I hit one button, man, and it's just a wrap. Golly, I apologize for y'all. Looking enough to recoup on me.
Yeah, Tanya's back now, so we're going to get started. Give her a second to regroup, and we'll get started. Glad to have you back, Tanya.
Oh, yes, me too. All right, so I think we ended with Eric. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now that means it's Maggie Jo's turn?
Yeah, but should we give Benny a chance on the other question? He got kicked off too. I don't know.
He's missed 2 questions, so we're gonna circle back around to get his answers.
Oh, you got to answer 3 at once, Benny J.
Yes, we will circle back around and give you a chance, Benny. Understood. All right, Miss Maggie, what we got?
Yeah, so I have worked with differing views the entirety of my career. I've been a prosecutor and a public defender. I've been a solo practice attorney, and dealing with people with very different views can sometimes be difficult. But luckily, we have checks and balances and juries to sort things out. Some places in history where I've seen Democrats meet halfway with Republicans, some places have in every way made me question their loyalty to democratic values. Situations such as Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Separate but Equal, the Patriot Act, certain rules regarding women's rights and going to a doctor before getting an abortion, or medicinal marijuana instead of full legal cannabis, or immigration issues where I know one of our opponents, Amy McGrath, said she'd be willing to build the wall in order to agree on the Dreamers. And I don't agree with those sorts of actions. I tend to be one that will dig my heels in before I will let somebody or some small subgroup suffer another blow to their rights because we're meeting someone halfway. I think that's inexcusable.
Okay. And Benny J, now that you're back with us, I'm going to give you an opportunity to answer this question. So it'll be just 2 other questions you'll have to answer. What would you do to work across the aisle to get legislation beneficial for Kentucky done?
Well, like one of our great senators from the mid 19th century, like Henry Clay, he was a great compromiser. So I guess basically I would try to compromise, but not, probably to the point where I want to make sure that what's best for all Kentuckians. You got to look at the bill and see if it's going to benefit the greater good and majority of the people. And if it's going to be a good bill, period. So if it's something that I would propose or introduce, I want to make sure I listen to everybody, listen to all sides. Sit back and preferably one of the hardest things we can do, and I've seen it happen, is we have a hard time agreeing to disagree. And I think if we can practice that art, then we can get a lot more done. So I have no problem working with a colleague across the aisle if done. So I have no problem working with a colleague across the aisle if your friends in Kentucky decide to hire me to be the representative.
Okay. Our next next question will also be a 1-minute question. What type of judges would you like to affirm? What type of judges would you like to affirm? Hold on. Now this is we're gonna start with Jimmy for this question, and it's gonna take it's gonna be a 1-minute-er.
All right. First and foremost, they need to be experienced. Second, fair and impartial. I believe they also need to recognize that no man should have the right to govern a woman's body or her reproductive choices. I think that.
Please mute your lines.
Sorry.
Not you. Okay.
And again, just be willing to literally listen to the cases, not be prejudged, and just open. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy. Eric, same question.
Yeah, so I think Roe v. Wade is definitely this test. Something's not going to someone who will return Citizens United and Buck v. Vallejo, which in my opinion are the two worst Supreme Court decisions in modern history. Basically, both of them led to our corrupt system, big money rules, and money interest really controls Washington, D.C. because of financing. So I'd like to appoint more judges like that.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. And now we will hear from Maggie Jo. Same question.
Yeah, so currently what we're working with in many of my cases and my clients' cases are inexperienced judges that don't necessarily meet what the founders of the United States saw in terms of our federal judiciary. What's happened is Mitch McConnell has noted that our courts can and will be manipulated in the background by his poor behavior, such as Merrick Garland's situation. But I would say, we want judges that aren't just Federalist Society committed. We want unbiased, well-vetted, educated, experienced, unbiased judges that will listen to sort of the community needs, not necessarily those extremists. And in terms of increasing the federal judiciary, I think that it would be very good in terms of lowering caseloads, perhaps getting. Oh, my time's up. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And now, Benny J.
Thank you for the question. First of all, you have to have judges that are qualified. And Maggie Jo and everyone else didn't have to have the experience. I would like to anywhere from liberal to moderate. For the tad bit of going a little bit to the right, not too far. But the main thing is they have to be fair and impartial. Be very knowledgeable about their law. Number one. Number two, have experience and have litigation experience. And depending on who's recommending those particular judges, find out what their agenda is. Something that's going to benefit the citizens equally. Under the law, we do have due process equally under the law, supposedly, but like Maggie Jo mentioned, just one rushing judges through who don't have any experience, and so basically that would be what I'd want to see in a judge. First, highly qualified, experienced, unbiased, and they have the rule of law, and they really actually look at the case and really make sure they have a nice balanced approach. And
Time's up.
Okay. And now our next question would be, would you support
I have a
expenditures?
private one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip over someone?
It's Mike.
Mike. Oh, my goodness. I'm so sorry. Yes, Mike,
No worries.
yes, you may. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Okay, no worries. First, I'd say this. I don't think anyone meeting with us here today, if we bothered to show up, would have ever voted to seat Justice Kavanaugh on the bench. And I just think that we have to take a look at the person. And one thing that Maggie, I think, spoke to was, judicial temperament. Is this a sane, balanced, common sense person? Has the ability to judge the people coming before them in sometimes life or death situations objectively? And secondly, I think that will let it be known to any administration that was appointing or made it a judge, the Supreme Court, for example, that in this, like particularly the Supreme Court, it better be a woman. Right now, we have 3 women represented on the Supreme Court, but grossly misrepresented of the number of women in our population. We've got 1 African American Supreme Court justice, and so we need to diversify our bench with qualified judges with a strong judicial temperament and people who are not beholden to corporate or political interests.
Good deal. Good deal. Thank you so much, Mike. I do apologize for almost missing you on that one.
No worries.
Okay, next question. How would you ensure that veterans receive less obstacles for disability ratings and benefits? And I'll give each of you 2 minutes on this question. And I can read it again. How would you ensure that veterans receive less obstacles for disability ratings and benefits? And this time we'll start with Eric.
All right. Well, I'm not really sure what to say outside of increasing funding to it so that they get the resources that they need to appropriately address these issues. I'm not nuanced enough, obviously, in anything in particular in regards to something that may be denied at this point. But if I understand the question correctly, I would look at that and I would just vote for any legislation that would make sure that our veterans were taken care of.
Eric. And next we'll have Maggie Jo.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry, I didn't know if I went out just a little bit. Yeah, so one of the things that I was going to speak about previously in your question regarding veterans is the lack of legal resources for folks who are fighting these disability ratings fights. Recently, the Louisville Legal Aid Office sent out a letter to many of us lawyers talking about the essential services that some folks that are coming back from war or maybe not coming back from war, either they're injured or not injured, they may be disabled, but they're being denied benefits on the basis of some sort of exclusion or you don't meet this standard or you didn't do this much work. And I think we've seen it in the public healthcare system as well. We've got to stop leaving people out. When we leave people out, we have issues, double and triple in severity, things such as the suicide rate.
No, I'm okay, thank you.
I'm sorry?
Please mute your phone lines if you're not one of the candidates, please. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was my time call. I was like, oh, no.
No, you're doing fine.
Civilian legal services are that are being utilized for many of these arguments with the VA for qualifying for benefits or a particular disability rating to get this or that. It's the same as the civilian health insurance problems with, discrimination. We just need systems that work for everybody. We don't need to be, giving certain people certain benefits and others these other benefits. At the end of the day, we're all entitled to health care. We should all receive the best care that we can have. And there shouldn't be some sort of predetermination by some board whether or not you're ill enough. Those sorts of things lead to bigger problems. People get sicker. There's, suicide increases, increased needs for mental health. And then obviously these are people that are affecting their families as well. You want people to be around their children happily and not with a hurt mind. So that's another thing that drives me nuts about the system, is that we just need to expand care. It's really it.
Well, thank you, Maggie Jo. Benny J, same question.
Thank you for the question. First of all, my main thing is, if you served and you were discharged honorably, there should be no reason why you shouldn't have the best medical care possible. I don't care what situation is. Someone told me in Meade County that there's a lot of hoops that folks jump to meet a certain qualification on, and then they get denied for this and that. I'm going to cut the bureaucracy. Right? If you served honorably and you were discharged honorably, then you should be able to receive all your benefits. No, nothing's going to be held against you because you didn't qualify for this. You're going to qualify because you served your country. And that will be one way to cut the red tape. And I would hire more staff, medical staff, the VAs. More funding needs to be done to make sure we have the adequate staff to be able to serve everybody. I happen to know the new Commissioner of Veteran Affairs that Governor Bashir just appointed. I have a working relationship with him, or I will have a working relationship with him. And also General Henry Huntley, who was a Kentucky State graduate and who went on to become a general. He's in D.C. now working with the VA. So I would definitely work with them to ensure that not only our veterans here in Kentucky get the proper care and medical assistance and everything they need for them and their families. I would also do that for the rest of our veterans throughout our country who have served and have an honorable discharge. So they are why we are enjoying these freedoms today.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. Now we'll hear from Mike.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that, first of all, is that if we quickly move to a single-payer healthcare system, day-to-day services for veterans, just routine things that you encounter as you age and go through your life, will become not that important. VA wouldn't be, you wouldn't be traveling to the VA to get your eyes checked or your teeth checked or things like that, and so you wouldn't need the specific care that our VA centers provide for service-related injuries and disabilities. The second thing, I guess the most important thing to me, that people need to acknowledge that the wounds that we bring back from war do not immediately manifest themselves. And, while when you step out of the Marine Corps or the Army, Navy, Air Force at 22 or 23, you feel like $1 million, but the cumulative effect of your service on your joints, your knees, your feet, your back, can manifest itself over time. So we need a much more flexible system than we have now, which is when you leave the service, you have disabilities determined. And for young folks, and I got to tell you, when I got out, I wasn't actually a young guy. I'd served over 20 years, and I was unwilling to say I was hurt one way or another. But those things catch up to you, and so we shouldn't hang a certain level of disability on people as they exit the service and make a more flexible system where you go back and say, I'm an honorably discharged veteran and I'm having this problem and I need this help. But I think the first step is to unburden the VA with day-to-day care of veterans by having a single-payer healthcare system that's accessible to everyone and allow the VA to deal with service-related injuries specifically.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Jimmy?
All right. First is, we kind of take the politics out of the process and replace it with actual needs. I like what Mike said, that initially one thing appears, down the road something else may appear. So that's something that needs to be addressed and looked at. Funding limits should never be a deterrent in providing services or benefits to the men and women that serve our country. So increasing funding, like Eric said, that has to be a priority. Because if we can spend hundreds of billions of dollars on weapons of war, we can spend that money on our servicemen and women that has sacrificed their life, their time, their family, their limbs. So it's just, again, let's just use common sense when we're applying these benefits and scoring the men and women. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. And I did start with Eric. Okay, we're going to go to our next question. And this will be another 1 minuter. It will be, would you support expenditures for housing for the homeless? Would you support expenditures for housing for the homeless? 1 minute, and we're going to start with Maggie Jo.
I guess you get to me nodding my head. Like
yes,
crazy.
that's your 1 minute.
The answer is yes. I was very unfortunate to get out of law school just a few years before the housing crisis, and people still are not rebounding. We bailed out the banks. We bailed out auto. What about the people? We have more homeless children in the state of Kentucky than any other state in the United States. It's a serious problem because, even just a month of homelessness can put a child behind so far in school that they may not ever catch up. Obviously you can't go a month without food. You can't, these are, expenditures for housing, expenditures for food, education, exponentially multiply the goodness of a community. And you can only do as well as the lowest man on that totem pole. And we have got to lift everyone up. We bailed out the banks. Give us our housing. People deserve to have a house. And I think we can touch the wealthy to get there.
Thank you, Maggie Jo. BDJ.
Thank you for the question. I was a paycheck away from being homeless, and I became homeless when I got laid off about 3 times in 4 months. But thank God there was a service called Wayside Christian Mission. I was able to utilize those services to help get on my feet. And it must have been an act of God for me to be in that situation, because what I witnessed is what I probably would not have witnessed had I not been in that situation. And I would like to spend those funding on hotels. We have 120 counties. I'd say and homeless is hitting every county in this state, unfortunately. What I'd like to do is, we always spending or building hotels for conventions and everything. Why not put the same energy in building hotels for homeless model after the Hotel Louisville here, where they actually provide services to address the alcohol and drug addiction. They also offer job skills training for hospitality, as well as other skills. Folks would be interested in going to help rebuild their lives. And there would be a temporary situation. It'd be one for if you're single, and also for families. Also, that same hotel.
Time's up.
Okay, thank you. Mike, same question.
Well, I think the fact that the homelessness crisis and the housing crisis in America is kind of self-evident, and as Maggie Jo pointed out, the fact that we have 30% of Kentucky's children are homeless right now is completely disturbing. One thing we need to bear in mind when we talk about housing people, it needs to be tied in with transportation as well, because people say, well, let's build a bunch of homes out in the country. Well, that's great. But buses don't run out here in the country. Trains don't run out here in the country. Because if you build someone a home and you expect them to work, then you got to give them a car. So whatever it is that we do has got to be a kind of a holistic plan to address the root causes of homelessness. And one of the reasons I support UBI is universal basic income is the fact that it significantly impacts people at the lowest incomes, and the people the most desperate get the most impact from universal basic income, allowing them to maintain dignity in their life and not worry about where they're going to sleep that night or where their next meal is going to come from.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Jimmy?
All right. Well, first, homelessness is traumatic. As a mental health counselor and a substance abuse counselor, I get to see firsthand the effects and, unfortunately, the lack of resources that our homeless population have. And a lot of these are veterans and veterans with families. So I think it's important that we do offer quality assistance. I believe we also provide education. And the stigma has to be addressed. We know a lot of proud people, and they don't always ask for the help that they need. So we need to be able to look and see how much of that is existing. And like Mike said, UBI would make a huge difference in our communities. Thank you.
Please mute lines if you're not speaking. Please mute lines if you're not speaking. I'm sorry, Jimmy, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was finished.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jimmy. And Eric, please. Same question.
Yeah, I do support a housing for all program. Lots of countries like Sweden have successful programs. I'd be remiss not to point out I'm originally from California. That's where I was born and raised.
Oh.
And the homeless crisis there is crazy. I've had friends that have been homeless, that spent time in homeless shelters with them, trying to help them get jobs and all the rest. It is an issue. I agree. I'm for a form of UBI tied to automation and public investments. I think that helps. I think literally just building housing helps. I think putting a national cap on annual rent increases help. Raising the minimum wage helps. There's a lot of things that we can do. Medicare for all helps. And I support all those agendas.
Okay. Well, thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. And now we're headed to our next question. How would you ensure that our elections are secured? How would you ensure that our elections are secured? You will have 2 minutes for this question, and we're going to start with Benny J.
Thank you for the question. First of all, I would take that bill that the election security legislation is on his desk. I would clean that desk up and actually pass that legislation. Because bottom line is, Russians have interfered in our 2016 elections, and they're doing it again. And Congress has already passed a bill to address the election security legislation. So I would go and meet his office, find where he's had those bills, and I would definitely get that passed and make sure that our elections are secure. In addition to that, I would make sure that every citizen gets an opportunity to vote and make sure that we do not have any voter suppression activities going on, and one count, one vote.
Okay. Thank you, Benny. Mike, please, same question.
All right, I'm unmuted. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that's kind of come out of this coronavirus issue is the fact that, people are talking about doing mail-in votes, and all of a sudden we are faced with a crisis, and people are turning to the U.S. Postal Service. And I've actually taken classified documents. You just wrap them in an exterior envelope and put them in the mail. And the U.S. Postal Service has an incredible high level of efficiency and security. So, I'm kind of a supporter of mail-in votes. Allow people to vote from home, and one of the best, it provides paper trail. And of course, as Benny said, we need to focus on meddling in our elections. But if something is done with paper trail, it makes it much, much more difficult to interfere with it. But I just find it ironic that here we are faced with this coronavirus pandemic, and people are suddenly turning to the Postal Service, which is going back to 1992. The government's been trying to privatize and get rid of. And so I kind of like, maybe I'm old-fashioned here, but I kind of like the idea of paper ballot coming in by mail.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. We'll go over to Jimmy. Same question.
All right. I guess number one is we need to realize that it is an issue. Second, I think we need to call out and hold those members of Congress accountable for denying that there is or isn't an issue. I agree completely with Mike, and I think Maggie Jo said earlier, mailing in ballots, that paper trail, that is probably one of the easiest things. It's kind of hard to mess up a pencil on a piece of paper. It is or it isn't. So removing some of the electronic components out of it, and I guess kind of going back old school. You show up, you vote, fill out the form, you mail it in. Kind of simple. Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Now we'll hear from Eric.
So first and foremost, I'm actually really looking forward to Meg Jo's answer. She was kind of interesting. A very interesting take on this that I haven't fully looked into, but I very much appreciate she
What a dick rider.
to me about it. But so I'm coming from the IT world. I know that almost anything's hackable. So for me, it's paper ballots in terms of election security. In terms of election integrity, I do think we need federal oversight of the election system, especially the primaries between the parties. There has been issues there. I would very happily make Election Day a national holiday, and I would, very much be fighting to get money out of politics and instituting a very much like Andrew Yang's Democracy Dollars idea, publicly financed elections. I think that is going to really transform the way that people vote and the way that campaigns are funded, and really just democracy. So that's what I think.
Thank you so much, Eric. Maggie Jo?
Thank you, Eric, for the introduction. He's heard me on my spiel before. So Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution lays out the United States Postal Service's duties to deliver the mail, and it comes with it the additional inclusion of the most unbiased, hardest working law enforcement agency in the world, postal inspectors. They keep our mail safe. They can keep our email safe. I think that it would cost less than about $6 per citizen for the United States government to provide a citizen with an email address that is governed by Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, that would come in under the United States Postal Service postal inspectors, purview. And then what we would institute is actually a double verification vote, whereby you would drop off a paper ballot for verification at the Postal Service, which would then be scanned in and kept in a backup record for all 330 million people. Actually, it'd just be those 16 and over. That email address, of course, would prevent people from doing what they're doing on social media with misleading ads and things like that, because you can't do that. There's a large progeny of case law on the protection of mail and the accuracy of the data in which we receive receive inside the mail. So if you just applied that to emails and you allow citizens and their government to communicate that way, and you do the double verification of the mail, there you'd have a blockchain vote, essentially. So, we forget that our election system was put in place to keep people out so that only white males could vote. So there's a lot of improvements I would make. Fair districts, federal legislative representation to all people and territories, including Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. I'm seeing Eric smile at that because he's the one that is big on that one. Early voting, auto registration, moderated online town squares, remote and absentee ballots, universal suffrage, proportional representation, term limits in the Electoral College, multi-factor, not just double factor verification. We could also have systems where we go and we check in with our neighbor. Hey, did you vote? Okay. So I may be running out of time here, but ultimately we need to abolish voter ID laws, and that's one of the places where currently the Kentucky legislature is arguing this issue. And for years we know what that bill is all about. It's about keeping people out that can't afford an ID.
Thank you, Maggie.
All right.
Thank you, Maggie. You did good, though. You got it out.
I got it all.
You got it out. That was actually our final question. We're going to go ahead and give candidate Benny J. Smith the opportunity to answer 2 questions that he had missed earlier due to technology issues. So, Benny J., are you still with us?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. The first question will be... Okay. The first question we have is, if elected, what would be the first bill you would sponsor? And you actually have 2 minutes.
Okay. I think the very first bill that I would sponsor would probably be Violence Against Women Act. Violence Against Women Act, because we have such a domestic violence issue against our women. Seems like these guys in here with the machoistic mindset, they always want to lose control, be in control, and they are afraid of strong-minded, independent women. And this violence against women is just out of control, and doesn't seem like they have any type of recourse to get those. It's a very serious issue. The trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, be another one. I definitely want to deschedule and legalize cannabis for medicinal and recreational use in a responsible manner, and set up dispensaries for those nonviolent marijuana offenders, and that way we can use that tax revenue to help boost up the economy. Another bill I want to introduce, like I said, the rapid and light rail passenger train system. If Ms. Lane Child can give Mr. McConnell $78 million to help on his reelection bid, surely, if she's still there, someone can give us 78+ million to get this train system, and it'll be modeled after the links. Jay Corman, since they already have the train system here, and we just kind of, and there'll be more job opportunities to people to work, especially in the Appalachian, the rural areas as well. I definitely would put funding in solar panels, wind turbines, so that we can definitely, time's up, renewable energy and energy technology.
Thank you. Okay. And now we're going to go to the next question. And this one, but also, you'll have 1 minute on this one. How important is the deficit to you, and what would you do to address the issue?
Repeat that, please. That's me still?
Yes, it's still you. These are the 2 questions that you'd actually missed.
Okay. Repeat that again, please, ma'am.
Sure. How important is the deficit to you, and what would you do to address the issue?
Oh, my God. Deficit, that's the one. That's the main, one of my main platform initiatives. Basically, we're now, 23, 24 trillion in debt now. And President Obama at least left us in a better shape financially than what Mr. Trump has ballooned the economy up to now. So basically, what I would do, I would reverse what Mr. Trump has done, and when he gave tax breaks to the rich, and I'll tax those 1%ers, and also I would tax insurance companies. I would tax the pharmaceutical companies. So those funds from that revenue could definitely fund some many services that we desperately need. Medicaid needs to be increased. Medicare for all. An opportunity to we have some extra money to finally be able to kind of, and then there'll be a balanced budget amendment that we definitely need. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We're getting ready to go into closing statements. We give each of you 1 minute to say anything that you feel that you did not get a chance to say. It is 60 seconds, 1 minute, that we can have the lasting impression of you as a candidate. So we're going to go ahead and start with Mike and proceed from there. Mike?
All right, I'm unmuted here. Yep, I'm unmuted.
Understood.
So people think that defeating Donald Trump's the most important thing in 2020. I disagree. I think that defeating Mitch McConnell is the most important in 2020. He has enabled Donald Trump to do the ridiculous things he has done by not checking his power. And the most important thing, of course, is him packing the federal bench with ideologically driven and unqualified judges. So honestly, I think for the sake of the nation, the sake of the Republic and the Constitution, that defeating Mitch McConnell is the most important thing. And voters in Kentucky need to take a look and say, who's most likely to beat Mitch McConnell? And of course, all of us think it's them, but I think it's me. I'm a farmer that carries a lot of weight in Kentucky. I'm a retired combat veteran and also a former educator. Everyone in Kentucky knows a teacher, a veteran, and an educator. I can talk to those people and not only win the Democratic vote with my progressive ideas, but also bring over the handful of Republicans we need to beat Mitch McConnell.
Thank you, Mike. Jimmy, please.
All right. First, I want to thank you for having us. I also want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening tonight. I know that I'm a candidate that you can trust.
Mike, why won't you get out of the recorder section? What's wrong with you?
I'm running because it's important to be represented, and we haven't been represented in quite a while. I'm committed to restoring integrity and leadership in Washington because I'm going to put our interests first, not special interests. And so if you want to know more about me and my candidacy, please check out jimmyforkentucky.com.
Thank you, Jimmy. Eric?
Yep. Again, thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone showing up. In terms of electability, in terms of defeating Mitch McConnell, the one thing that I really hope that we do, and there's, I believe, a few candidates that fall into this category, I hope that we elect someone who does not take any big money. No PAC money, no super PAC money, no corp PAC money, no special interest money, no lobbyist money. I, for one, take none of that. And because that really is the most bipartisan issue that you can hit Mitch McConnell on. That is his legacy in politics. He believes in money in politics so much that he sued the Federal Election Commission to go away Supreme Court. All right, so in terms of me, I have all my issues laid out at ericrothmuller.com. You should know exactly what you get with me, and you're comfortable with me being your voice on the floor of the Senate.
Time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Maggie Jo?
So with my campaign, you can find us at itsmontez.com. I've been a litigation attorney on behalf of individuals and small businesses for 15 years, and in almost every single case that I've ever worked on, there is some element of corporate or government malfeasance. And those are the sort of things that you get when you have somebody like Mitch McConnell, who purely cares about his own pockets and less about the people. He calls himself a cynic. I'm not. I'm an optimist, and so I've made us a lovely sticker, and you can buy these at my online store. By the end of the week, we should have that online store up and going. Our printer is taking some time with the tragic pandemic that we're facing because of our highly inept government. One of the people having much to do with that is Mitch McConnell. Time and time again, in a time of crisis, he does not protect us. He goes home and goes on vacation. This is not the first time nor the last. That's why we need to get rid of him. Our government should be accountable to us. The people should be free to find their American dream, regardless of who they love or where they live or what sort of mental health care situation that they're in. We need civil rights for everyone. Everybody deserves housing and a good climate, a home that's safe, and education is safe as well, and also worth the money. We need better communities. We need communications between the people and their government. We need conservation in its truest form, not conservatives claiming that they're conserving anything for anyone other than themselves. Again, it's electmojo.com. I hope you'll check out my campaign.
Thank you, Maggie Jo. Thank you, Maggie Jo. And we have Benny J. 1 minute.
All right. First of all, thank you so much for having this forum. And I want to thank all my candidate opponents. Appreciate you all. It takes courage and commitment to be in this type of environment and race. As one who was born in Danville, Kentucky, also known as the city of First, on Derby Day, I thank God for allowing me to be a candidate in this race, and I pretty much look forward to being representative for all citizens in this state, not just a very few with money or those special interests. Mitch McConnell has been calling us ever since his questionable military service back in 1967. We had a letter written, but that's another story. We'll get to that at some point. Thank you for allowing me to be your candidate, and just as everyone else thinks, I think I best represent you in D.C. I'm not corruptible, never have been, never will be, and I have everyone's best interest at heart. And you can also learn a little bit more about my campaign at BennyJSmith.com, BennyJSmith.com. I definitely want to make sure we can train our coal miners who are definitely needs help and assistance, and permanently fund the Black Learning Fund.
Thank you. Well, we would like to thank, on behalf of the Greater Hardin County Women's Network, all of you for participating in the Let the Voters Choose Democratic U.S. Senatorial Candidates Forum. We would like to give a special thanks to Lacey Rice. We have Nancy Chancellor Cox, Brenda Thomas. We'd also like to thank Stan Holmes for being an outstanding timekeeper, and Bishop Rome for the great article in the News Enterprise. Candidates, we thank you all so much for participating on tonight. It meant everything, and I know with us doing this new technology, we had a little fun in the process. And to all and for all who were able to Zoom in and listen, we hope you got some great information. A couple of dates to remember. April 20th, 2020 is the final day to register to vote. Please spread that word with all of your family and friends. They can go online and do it, since most of us are quarantined in some way, shape, or form. Please remember that. And also, the census ballots are out there now. Everybody get counted. There's no excuses. Again, we're all in the house, so we can find a way to call or email or send the form right back in before the post office closes. Last and certainly not least, please remember May 19th, 2020 is the primary election date, when we have the opportunity to elect our next U.S. Senator candidate that will be ready for the runoff in November. I would like to present to you all again Mr. Jimmy Osbrooks, Maggie Jo Hilliard, Mike Boyer, Eric Rothmuller, State Representatives Charles Booker, and Benny J. Smith, candidates for the U.S. Senatorial Candidates Forum. Again, this is Councilwoman Tanya Seabrooks from the city of Radcliffe saying thank you for hanging out with me on today, and I wish you all much success. And again, don't forget, May 19th, 2020, value your vote and vote your values. You all have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Montez McCary from itsmontez.com. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. If you don't do that, you can't keep up. Mi cari loco.